Hey, what's going on everybody? Jason here, and welcome back to another Call of Duty Zombies video. Today, we're going to be ranking all of the Call of Duty Zombies characters on a tier list. This video is being made in collaboration with The Legend HD, who is gathering 100 Zombies YouTubers so that they can share their lists. And when all the YouTubers share their lists, he's going to put them all together into one definitive Zombies community character tier list. So I think without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the ranking. So first things first, I think this is irrefutable. We gotta put Primus and Ultimus up into S tier. The OG 4 characters, both in their Primus and Ultimus forms, are awesome, and the voice acting is some of the best in gaming and the most iconic in gaming history. Tom Kane, Steve Bloom, Fred Tatasciore, and Nolan North knock it out of the park as Takio, Dempsey, Nikolai, and Richtofen. And they are some of my favorite characters of all time from any piece of media, so for that reason, they have to go into S tier. But now getting on with some of the other characters here, let's just go in order, and we have Alistair Rhodes here from the Chaos storyline. Alistair Rhodes is kind of interesting. We don't know too much about him, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's a bad character, so just for that reason, I'm putting him in D tier. We don't know that much about him yet. Next up, we have Arthur, or Leroy, from Buried, and I think I'm going to put him up into B tier, mainly because he's super iconic and you can't play Buried without him. Next up, it looks like we have Billy Handsome from Mob of the Dead. I think I'm going to put this guy up into A tier. The Mob of the Dead gangsters are very memorable and there's some pretty cool characters. And you know what? Since we're talking about Mob of the Dead now, I think we should put the rest of the Mob of the Dead gangsters up here into A tier. The Mob of the Dead gangsters, in my opinion, are the best celebrity cast in Call of Duty Zombies, so they deserve to be at A tier. Now we have Bruno from the Chaos storyline, and you know, Bruno's an okay character. He has an important role to play in the overall storyline of the Chaos storyline. I think just because he's actually pretty important in the Chaos storyline, I'm going to put him in B tier. He has significance in the Chaos storyline because of what happened in Morocco, and he was the first of the Chaos crew to be turned into one of the cultist members with the glowing red forehead, so he's going to go into B tier. Major Carver from Black Ops Cold War. He's not a bad character, but I'm going to put him into C tier. He's not a bad character by any stretch of the imagination. He's just kind of one-dimensional. Fidel Castro from 5. Once again, I think I'm going to put him into C tier. Fidel Castro in 5 is a nice touch, but he's an okay character. Next up, we have Danny Trejo in Call of the Dead. Danny Trejo is a pretty iconic actor, and it's not surprising that he made an appearance here in Call of Duty Zombies. I think for that reason, I'm going to put him up into B tier here. He's not the greatest character of all time, but it's pretty cool that he makes a celebrity appearance. Next up, we have adult Samantha Maxis, who is very important in the Dark Ether storyline in Black Ops Cold War. Everybody loves Samantha Maxis because she's iconic, and in Black Ops Cold War, they tried to give her more of a personality and more depth. And she's definitely going to be playing a much bigger role in the sequel to Black Ops Cold War Zombies, so I think I'm going to put her up into A tier. And you know what? The same thing is going to go for Child Samantha Maxis. Obviously, another iconic character, and the majority of Call of Duty Zombies wouldn't even happen if Samantha Maxis didn't take control of the zombies. Samantha Maxis is one of those characters that you automatically think about when you think of Call of Duty Zombies. So again, for that reason, both the adult and child versions of Samantha are going to go into A tier. Diego from the Chaos storyline. Again, he's not a bad character by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not a super great character, unlike, you know, Primus and Ultimus here, who are fantastic. You know what? I'll put him right next to Bruno up here at B tier, just because if there is going to be some sort of continuation of the Chaos storyline integrated into the Dark Ether storyline, Diego would be one of those returning characters. Next up, we have the Psychic from Dead of the Night, and to be honest, I don't even know this character's name. She's a pretty one-note character, not really my favorite, but I wouldn't put her into F tier. I think I'd put her into D tier. Next up, we have Ferguson here from Mob of the Dead, and he's going to go up into C tier. With the lore of Mob of the Dead in Dimension 63, Ferguson plays a pretty important role. However, you know, he's not that iconic, and not a lot of people might remember him. But don't worry, Ferguson, I remember you. Next up, we have Floyd from Shadows of Evil. He's a tough guy boxer. What else is there to say about him? But because Shadows of Evil is a cool map, honestly, I'm going to put the boxer stereotype character here in B tier. Am I biased? You bet your ass I am, but that's the whole point of me making my own tier list. Next up is the Forsaken, the evil entity at the end of Black Ops Cold War that we have to defeat. He's gonna go into B tier as well. He's definitely not a bad villain or a bad character. I just wish we knew a little bit more about how Zykov became the Forsaken. And speaking of Zykov, he's actually right here, and I think I'll put him right next to the Forsaken here at B tier, mainly because they're the same character. So it would have been really nice to see more of the backstory on how Zykov became became the Forsaken. I know it's alluded to in some of the intel and radios from the Dark Aether storyline, but of course, it would be much better to actually see it in a cutscene. George Romero, the father of the zombies genre. I think for that reason alone, he's going to be higher up on the tier list. As an enemy type in Call of Duty Zombies, yeah, probably down to D or F tier. But for the genre of zombies and what he contributed, and Call of Duty Zombies might not even exist without the influence of George Romero in the first place, I think we got to put him up into, let's do A tier. It's one thing being an enemy type in a video game, but it's another thing to leave a legacy, and that's what George Romero did. Next up, we have Gersh here from Ascension. This is the poster where a lot of people didn't know who this was at first, and to be honest, I think Gersh can be pretty forgettable sometimes, so he's going to be the first character today that goes into the forgettable tier. I know, Gersh is kind of important in the zombie storyline, but I just personally forget that he's in the storyline most of the time. That's just me. Next up, we have Charles Dance as the butler here from Dead of the Night. He's going to go right next to the psychic here at D tier. Charles Dance is a great actor, but when it comes to the Dead of the Night crew, they're okay to me. Next, we have Dr. Gray from Black Ops Cold War, and I think she's going to go right next to Major Carver here at C tier. And now we have Dr. Groff here from Der Eisendrache. I think the only reason why people know Dr. Groff is because of Der Eisendrache. He's not that important of a character in the grand scheme of everything, but of course he's very important for Der Eisendrache. So for that reason, I'm going to put him over here in D tier. That doesn't mean he's a bad character, but compared to the other characters that we've ranked today, I think this is a fair rating. Next up, we have Jackie fucking Vincent here from Shadows of Evil. And one of the first things you think about when you play Shadows of Evil is Jackie fucking Vincent. So he's going to go up into B tier right next to Floyd. Sticking with Shadows of Evil, we have Jessica Rose. You know, the Shadows of Evil crew has a lot more nuance than people give them credit for, so I think for that reason, Jessica Rose will also go up into B tier right next to her comrades. Next up, we have JFK, who obviously made his appearance in 5. Once again, if we're thinking about iconic characters, JFK is one of the first things you think about when you think about 5, so he's going to go up into B tier. Next up, we have Kravchenko here from the Dark Aether storyline. You know, at first the inclusion of Kravchenko seemed kind of weird, but as time went on, I thought Kravchenko was a pretty good villain for the Dark Aether storyline, and I think for that reason, I'm going to put him up into B tier. Next up, we have Gideon, the cowboy from Dead of the Night, and he's also going to go into D tier. Again, not as much depth to him as some other characters, pretty one note, and well, doesn't have a whole lot going for him. Next up, we have Richard Nixon, and once again, one of the first things you think about when you think about 5 is, sounds like someone's breaking in, and then JFK is saying, just a storm, Dick. So I think we're going to rank Nixon. We're going to rank Nixon at C tier, to be honest. Next up, we have Marlton, who I think a lot of people think he's pretty annoying. However, Marlton plays a pretty big role in the grand scheme of things when it comes to the Broken Earth and what he did at Broken Arrow. However, I tend to agree with the community when they say that Marlton is kind of annoying, so for that reason, he's going to move down from B tier, where I was originally going to put him, over here to the very top of C tier. Marlton's not a bad character. He can just be kind of annoying sometimes. Now we have Dr. Maxis. He's of course a very important character in the zombie storyline, and for that reason he's gonna go to, you know, I really want to put him in B, but I think I'm gonna put him in C tier, to be honest. The reason why I'm putting him here at C tier, and this is the only reason, is because after Black Ops 2, Maxis doesn't really become as important as he used to be. He dies very quickly in Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4 when he doesn't really get a whole lot of screen time in those games. So you know what, I think I'll move him towards the top of C tier here, right next to Marlton, but for that reason, I think he's gonna go into C tier. Maybe I'll change my mind later and put him up at B tier, but I'm still thinking about it. Next up, we have the Oracle, also known as Medusa from Ancient Evil. This villain had a ton of potential, and it went nowhere because, well, the mainline Chaos storyline maps ended after Black Ops 4. I'm gonna put her up at C tier, mainly because this character had a ton of potential and that got squandered. But I guess you never know if she's gonna return because Vanguard Zombies tied in the Chaos storyline, so we'll see what happens. Next up, we have Michael Rooker here, who made an appearance in Call of the Dead. Now, when it comes to the Call of the Dead cast in general, just because I haven't played a whole lot of Call of the Dead compared to some of the other Black Ops 1 maps, they're going to be ranked a little bit lower. I know, a lot of people aren't going to like that, but it's just because I haven't played Call of the Dead as much as the other maps. He's not a bad character, Michael Rooker is iconic, but I'm going to put him at C tier. And the same is going to go for the rest of the Call of the Dead crew. Now we have Misty from the Victus crew. Misty's not a bad character, but I wish we knew a little bit more about her. So for that reason, honestly, if we're being realistic, I can't put her any higher than C tier, and I'm gonna put her right next to Marlton. Now we have Nero from Shadows of Evil, and I think Nero is also gonna join his companions here from Shadows of Evil up at B tier. Now we have Robert McNamara, who of course made his appearance in 5, and honestly, he's gonna go right next to Richard Nixon and Fidel Castro. Now we have the Brigadier General from Dead of the Night, and just like the other cast members from Dead of the Night, he's gonna go into D tier. And now we have Dr. Peck from Black Ops Cold War Zombies. You either love him or you hate him. And me personally, I think he's not a bad villain. I think Dr. Peck is gonna have a pretty interesting storyline coming up in the sequel to Black Ops Cold War Zombies, so for that reason, he's gonna join Kravchenko up here at B tier. Raptor 1, another iconic character from Black Ops Cold War Zombies, he's also gonna go up into B tier. Ravenov from Black Ops Cold War, he's also, well, should I put him up in B tier? Okay, yes, I'll put him up in B tier as well. Now we have Russman, the next member of Victus. Conversely to Misty, we know a lot more about Russman, and Russman, honestly, he's got some depth to him as a character, just like his old pal Stuhlinger, so I think we're gonna put Russman up at B tier, but I think he's gonna go up here towards the top of B tier. And you know what? I think the same thing is gonna go for Samuel Stuhlinger as well. Stuhlinger, of course, has a lot of depth to him being a former member of the Flesh. Richtofen speaks to him in his head, and there's something about these two characters that just stick out in my mind when it comes to the Victus crew. Whether it's the depth that they bring to the table or their iconic voice lines, I think both Russman and Stuhlinger are the two best characters in the Victus crew. But next up we have Scarlet from the Chaos storyline, and honestly, I'm not a big fan. She does play a pivotal role in the Chaos storyline, but she can be kind of annoying at times, so I'm gonna put her at C tier. Now we have the Shadow Man, the one and only Harbinger of Doom. At this point, the Shadow Man is a classic villain in Call of Duty Zombies. I know this might sound like an over-exaggeration to some of you, but I'm gonna put him up into A tier. I really like the Shadow Man as a villain, especially when you get to Revelations and you have some of the one-on-one quotes with Primus and the Shadow Man. The Shadow Man really tries to bring you onto his side and convince you that what he's doing is actually good. He's a manipulator at every turn, and the Shadow Man, I think, is a pretty good villain for Call of Duty Zombies. Next up, we have Shaw from the Chaos storyline, and honestly, I think he shares the same fate as Scarlet. He can be kind of annoying sometimes, so I'm gonna put him at C tier. Now we have Dr. Strauss from the Dark Ether storyline, and once again, if we're talking about the side characters of the Dark Ether storyline, he's gonna go up into C tier. Not a bad character, but he's definitely a side character at best. Next up, we have Ted, the iconic bus driver from Transit. On the one hand, Ted is pretty iconic, and that's the first thing you think about when you think of Transit. Him and the bus. But then on the other hand, he's on Transit, and nobody likes that map. You know what? I think I'll do what I did with Marlton and Misty. I think I'll put him near the top of C tier. He's not quite B tier, but we're gonna put him at the top of C tier just because he's still iconic. Now we have Valentina from the Dark Ether storyline, and I think she's gonna go over here into C tier. She only serves one major purpose, to be the villain of Mauer der Toten. She does play a role in the Dark Ether storyline, but it's not as pivotal as some of the other characters. Next up, we have Gregory Weaver from the Dark Ether storyline. When it comes to Weaver, not only is he an iconic character from the Black Ops universe, but he plays a huge role in the Black Ops Cold War storyline. So for that reason, he's gonna go into B tier. Now we have Dr. Yeager from the Dark Ether storyline, and he's gonna go into C tier. When it comes to villains on the Dark Ether storyline, Kravchenko and Dr. Peck are at the forefront, but Yeager is a side character. And last but certainly not least, the Pentagon Thief. I don't think anybody likes this guy, but he's one of the first characters you think about when you think about 5. So he's not going to go into F tier, but I think he's going to go into D tier because, let's face it, nobody likes him. And I think one quick adjustment to the list is I think I am going to put Maxis up at B tier because Maxis is a very pivotal character in the overall grand scheme of the zombie storyline. I think he should go up into B tier. Well, there you have it, everybody. Here is my tier list of all of the Call of Duty Zombies characters. However, I did notice that Gorev from the Dark Ether storyline and Dr. Monty are not on this list. So if I had to rank those two characters, I would put Gorev in C tier right next to Yeager, and I would put Dr. Monty at B tier. But overall, this was a ton of fun today, and I will have Legends video linked down below in the description whenever he posts it. But anyways, guys, what do you think about my Call of Duty Zombies character tier list? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Anyways, guys, that's it for this video, and I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and subscribe if you're a brand new viewer. And with that said, have a fantastic rest of your day or night, depending on where you are in this crazy world, and I'll see you guys next time.